Good morning. I'm with Robert Winton, Senior Vice President of Operations for Gunnison Copper Corp. And Gunnison has some impactful news out this morning that we're going to delve into. Good morning, Robert. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. Another beautiful day here in Arizona, and hope you're well as well, Robert.
Yeah, I think this is our first conversation, definitely our first conversation on video. I've been a shareholder and follower of Gunnison Copper for about 4 years now. Great to see this morning's update. But before we delve into the update on operations there at Johnson Camp, I want to ask you about the macro situation for copper in the U.S. and some of the news that we've had in 2025 with the executive orders, tariffs. What's your take on the situation with Made in America copper and the state of, and what it means for the state of Arizona?
Absolutely. So Made in America copper is sort of the culmination of many years of understanding by our administrations that the critical mineral copper is absolutely the important cog in the wheel, both for the defense sector as well as the energy sector. So finally, after many years of the miners struggling in order to get permits, in order to engage the government to help our projects along, we've finally seen over the last couple of years some real engagement by both administrations, and then this administration has just supercharged things again with, as you said, with the tariffs, as well as trying to ensure that the Made America story can be a Made in America reality. Because again, quite a bit of our copper has to go overseas for treatment. So an organization like Gunnison and a lot of the copper that comes out of Arizona is able to be treated and produced into finished copper products here in the state. That means we're making copper that is truly domestically produced and not requiring foreign smelting, foreign processing, foreign refining, etc. So again, this is critical. This is the Gunnison story. This is what Gunnison has been doing for a number of years. Again, the Made in America finished copper products enabled to be delivered into the domestic market. Critical for the U.S.
Okay, so some really excellent points you just made there. So let's delve into that a little bit more, maybe for people that don't understand the difference between copper found in oxides that can be leached and be turned into a product, a copper cathode final product on site there in Arizona, versus a sulfide copper project that might need to be smelted to be turned into a final copper product.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, the copper oxides, which is not the vast majority of copper in the U.S., unfortunately. 20–30% of the copper comes from the oxide world. But as you mentioned, you're able to mine it. You're able to put it on a heap leach. By putting acid on it, you can then directly feed it into a solvent extraction electrowinning circuit. And this again produces finished copper. And as you mentioned, those sulfide projects, which is the vast majority of the ore that's available in the US, those require smelting. Those require refining. Those require a large tailing pond. So significant investment and a significant drain to the environment. They're very difficult to operate. They're very difficult to permit. And the US has shut most of them down over the last number of decades. So again, this requires a producer of a sulfide concentrate to send their product. It's usually going to Asia, the South Koreas, the Japans of the world, in order to be smelted, refined, and then we're having to import that finished copper back into America. So as you said, this oxide technology that we're employing at Gunnison, but that transitions beautifully into the Nuton story. So Nuton is now trialing at our site the first demonstration of their technology at a commercial scale, industrial scale, sulfide leaching, utilizing technologies that are quite similar to the oxide heap leach technology for sulfides. So their technology is fundamentally the birth of the Johnson Camp mining story from last year. The reason why we're constructing and we're now again on the verge of producing Made in America copper, it's for that sulfide demonstration. So we're on the brink of something exciting in the copper industry, but as you said, those technologies are not currently being employed for the sulfide world. Again, very few smelters in the States, and that requires that export and then import of the finished goods.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't. It just doesn't really make sense to be shipping copper sulfide ore to Asia for smelting and then having to ship it back. And there's a lot of time. There's a lot of expense, involved in that process. It looks like we might be building some more smelters in the U.S. at some point, but we know that's a lengthy process. It's not going to be easy. It's definitely not going to happen in the near future. So really the name of the game in 2025 and 2026 and 2027 is companies that have ore bodies that can make copper cathode in the U.S., the made in America copper, that we're talking about. So, let's delve into this morning's news, some key milestones for the company, including you've got copper ore on the leach pad as of last week. And it looks like you have a timeline to your first copper sales there in Arizona.
Absolutely. As you said, this milestone is incredible, an exciting journey, a very challenging, a big heavy lift, as we broke ground last July. So just after Independence Day last year, we broke ground on the desert in order to construct the leach pad. And as you mentioned, as of Friday, we've been able to put 3 panels of oxide ore. This represents a few 100,000 tons of copper ore. This is now getting acid cure. Fundamentally, the process is putting some higher strength acid, wetting the entire structure of that ore on the heap, letting it rest for a little while. Fundamentally, what that does is it just supercharges the leaching process. And then end of this month, we will begin rinsing that, producing our PLS, so that pregnant leach solution, and then starting to fire up the SX plant. And as that timeline, as you mentioned, that timeline sort of has us producing finished copper, looking to have that first sale in September of this year. So again, accelerated timeline to get us to this point where we're leaching copper on the heap, and then transitioning quite quickly into the finished good, getting on the back of a truck and heading. We're likely looking into Texas for those first few sales. So again, that made in America copper delivered to that made in America consumer.
So that's exciting. So later in Q3 and then into Q4, you'll be selling copper cathode, like those 100-pound sheets, putting it on truck beds and shipping it to your buyers in Texas. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So yeah, that's 5 nines pure. So 99.999% pure copper cathode, back of a truck, 45,000 pounds at a time, and hitting I-10 and heading east. So I'm just curious because I talk to a lot of explorers or companies that don't yet have their final permits. I talk to maybe an actual mining company like, once a month. So with the tariffs and with the COMEX copper price at $5.60 a pound, an all-time high, what does that mean for the economics of Johnson Camp? And, what does it mean for what you get paid for that 99.9% pure copper cathode? Absolutely. So it fundamentally supercharges the economics as our costs are fundamentally, a lot of them are fixed. A lot of the costs in mining are labor costs. So that's a big component, and that's a fixed cost. So that's not fundamentally changing with the ebbs and flow of the tariff world and the ever-changing economics of copper metal. So yeah, as that cost rises, some of our input costs do rise as well. There's usually sulfuric acid, which is a significant component to the leaching of copper in Arizona, does usually tend to rise, and that market is sometimes stretched. So again, some of those input costs do change. But as you mentioned, as you supercharge the COMEX and not having to deal in the LME world and the pricing as that is, that tariffs is fundamentally what's driving that COMEX price to these record levels. So that is critically important to a project as us. We're a small producer. Again, our larger project that we'll likely get into a little later in this conversation, that will supercharge a project of that size. But the Johnson Camp mine and its small nature and what we're doing with our partners at Nuton, those $5 plus copper prices are very significant in making sure that we're able to continue this process in demonstrating this new copper technology. Okay, so in the news release this morning, there's a drone shot that's overhead that shows 5 different leach pads, as far as I can understand. You have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then the
the oxide, heap leach that's just started. So tell us about the different phases of the, leaching, and how much can this ramp up the volume, of the operation?
Absolutely. So on that drawing, the phases are fundamentally phased in a construction way. So we built phase 1 first. That is where the run of mine oxide is being leached currently. So that was just the first part of the heap leach being built. On the very far right of that picture is a very large pond. So that's the emergency overflow pond. So all the solution flows from the west of our property to the east of our property. Phase 2 was the next significant requirement on the heap leach pad. That's where all of the Nuton processing equipment and the crushing unit is going to go, as well as their stockpiles. So their sulfide stockpiles are going to be housed on phase 2. So we needed that pad section next. Phase 3 to the right of that, just above phase 1, is where the Nuton heap leach will actually be stacked and the leaching of the Nuton sulfide leaching will begin. And then phase 4 was just the finishing. Fundamentally, phase 4 is going to be used as an overflow for ore, as well as some storage for Nuton or as it's produced out of the mine. So yeah, as those phases are fundamentally construction, but they were just to meet the needs of the project and making sure that we were able to get the oxide operation up first, and then ramp up the Nuton as that construction continues through the next couple of months.
So to be clear here, you're processing the oxide copper ore first and proving that works, and ramping up the operations with what you are confident in. And then you're going to begin processing sulfide ore at some point in the coming months. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. So yeah, oxide first, we start, and once oxide forms, we just start producing copper. The plant gets up and running. Again, we're producing those made in America copper cathodes. And then the Nuton side, construction finishes roughly 6-ish weeks from today. There's a commissioning phase of all of that equipment, make sure the crusher works, agglomeration, all of their secret sauce is working as intended. And then we start stacking. The intention is that we'll start producing copper at late into Q4. So in that November, December time, we will be looking to have a Nuton copper produced from the sulfide type ores that exist at Johnson Camp. Those commingle. Once they're in a plant, a copper ion is a copper ion. It doesn't distinguish between oxide or sulfide. And then we'll start producing copper from both sides, the oxide, the traditional oxide leach, as well as the Nuton sulfide leach. Looking to ramp that plant up to its full capacity, which is 25 million pounds per year. That we're looking to do in Q1 of next year, maybe early into Q2. So again, quite quick, get oxide up and running, get the plant operating, producing copper, and then get Nuton up and running, and then ramp the entire process up to produce that nameplate capacity of the plant.
So at nameplate, 25 million pounds a year at a $5 copper price, we're talking about annual revenues of over $100 million a year. That's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive for an operation our size. Again, this is a small operation. All things being equal, if you compare ourselves to the Morencis and the Freeports of Arizona and as well as the Asarcos. But again, that gets us in the door. It demonstrates the Nuton technology, allows us the opportunity to focus on Gunnison in the coming years, which is again the large nameplate project for Gunnison Copper.
Yeah, and there's a lot more sulfide targets across your property package. There's a lot of areas where you can grow the ore body. You can find more copper at depth and stepping out. I'm pretty confident of the expansion possibilities there at Gunnison. I want to talk to you about the safety track record. I mean, safety is paramount in mining. We care about people and their lives and not having lost time accidents. So can you tell us about safety at Johnson Camp?
Absolutely. Safety is a key component. It is the everyday, it's the every hour, it's the every minute level of focus for everyone that comes onto our site. So we've achieved over 11 years without a lost time accident at the site. Obviously, that includes the previous operation with respect to in situ leaching. We got the plant up and running in 2020. We ran through that whole time frame. We've gone through an entire construction phase. Our contractor has over 100 employees on site building the leach pad, as well as they're the same as a mining contractor. We ourselves at Gunnison have onboarded likely 25 to 30 people in the last 6 months. So again, bringing all of that new sort of not necessarily mine experienced personnel onto site is a real challenge and a real focus for everyone through the organization, the frontline supervisor, the superintendents, all the way up to the heads of the organization. If you're not focusing on safety, mentoring the activities, the behaviors that are necessary to ensure that track record continues, you don't really get the license to operate. This is a small community. Again, every site, every mine site becomes a community. Again, you get fed from all sorts of things. Very diverse groups of people come together to make copper in these sites. But the community spirit is really what drives that safety record. Is you are looking out for it. You're your brother's keeper at the end of the day. So making sure that your brother gets home to his family at the end of the day in as good or better condition than he showed up in the morning, that's what's really critical, and that's what allows you to maintain such incredible safety records. And yeah, we're very proud of the work of the employees and everybody comes onto our site, because there's all sorts of folks that come onto our site every day of the week, and them ensuring their safety as well as the safety of others is critical to that success.
Yeah, I mean, it usually starts at the mine gate, where when you show up, you sign in, you check in, and then you go through the safety briefing, and it's sort of the culture starts right there, and then it extends on from there. So well done on that. It's a great track record you have. You have over 100 employees and contractors that are at site on a daily basis. Is that number expected to still go up over the coming months, or is it going to be about stable, at that level? And what other key infrastructure can we expect to be built in the coming months?
Absolutely. So that number will rise a little bit over the next couple of months as we bring on the commissioning teams in order to commission all of the new equipment. But then it will start to ramp down. As construction ramps down, the contractor that's building the heap leach pad will ramp down their civil workers. And again, as we commission and get into operation, those people will exit site. So we'll sort of probably stabilize at where we are today. And as far as new infrastructure, there's not a lot of new stuff. It's really fundamentally stuff being finalized, pump stations being finalized, final tie-ins of pipelines, final connections to the electrical grid, as well as just those, again, commissioning. So the bulk of the Nuton equipment has been delivered to site. It's being put together and, as I said, trialed and commissioned. And yeah, so yeah, not a lot of new infrastructure, but it's just finalizing all these pieces in order to make the Nuton technology operate as we transition further into Q3.
For investors who may not know much about the state of Arizona, aside from the fact that it's hot and there's copper there, what are some of the key advantages to being a copper mining company that's located in the state of Arizona?
So because copper is one of the 5 C's that sort of built the economy of Arizona, the governments have always understood that copper is a critical asset to the state of Arizona. So regardless of your affiliations politically, all of these governments and administrations understand that ensuring copper is a vibrant industry is critical to the success of all of us that choose to mine and are able to mine in Arizona. So again, that ensures that we're able to get the necessary inputs. So making sure we have access to the water that's required for these projects, making sure we have the infrastructure, so roads, rail, etc., delivering stuff to and from our projects. These are the critical things that Arizona allows for us to do, as well as making sure we have the permitting process that allows us the success to deliver these projects. So our state permitting process is a very robust one, but also very well understood. Set timelines in order for organizations to understand sort of what the pathway is. So again, if you're able as an organization, which Gunnison is able to only utilize the state permitting process, as we don't have any federal nexus at our properties, we're able to understand what those timelines are. We work quite well with the the agency with respect to compliance and the permitting process. And this allows us the success that we're able to deliver copper cathode in the year 2025.
Fantastic. It's a very exciting time for Gunnison Copper. Final question, Robert. What's next for Gunnison? And maybe can you give us a rough timeline of news flow or key milestones that you expect for the rest of the year?
Absolutely. So we sort of have these two sets of news streams. One is that Johnson Camp news stream, which is the super exciting copper tangible. We'll have a pitch of the copper cathode getting loaded onto trucks, driving out on I-10. So that'll be a news flow. Again, we're looking for that to be happening in later September. So that's a critically important, as I said, we said we would deliver cathode this year. And again, proving to the market and our shareholders that yes, absolutely, here's the copper, the proof's in the pudding. So that Johnson Camp news flow will sort of be copper cathodes being produced, copper cathodes being sold, and then as well as the Nuton process starting and delivering copper to the plant. So those are significant milestones in the Johnson Camp Nuton partnership. But on the other side of the ledger is the Gunnison open pit project, which is the flagship project for our organization and where the real true value is that exists in our organization. So that news flow is quite exciting as well, as we are doing our high value add program right now. We completed our drilling. We're doing our studies on our ore sorting process, which really will allow us to fundamentally improve our operating costs as we transition into a pre-feasibility study. We've started the process of understanding the permitting pathway with respect to Gunnison and the necessary effort that's going to be required to get that permitted. So we're again looking by the end of 2026 to deliver a permitted open pit project to the shareholder group that will fundamentally deliver some significant value, A, to the organization, but B, to those shareholders that want to get into this exciting story today. So that's sort of the news flow, is really Johnson Camp delivering on our promises of producing copper, getting the Nuton technology up and running and producing as well. And then we'll just be giving updates, and Nuton will be giving updates as well as they have their successes in their demonstration process. And then on the Gunnison side, it's just really increasing that high value add news flow, making sure we're telling the market what's happening on that. Are we generating the value that we believe we're going to be generating in the high value side? And while transitioning into that pre-feasibility / permitting process through the end of this year and through the bulk of 2026.
I feel like the last few months has been a little bit of a quiet period where you're just sort of setting the table for the company and for Johnson Camp, and a really impactful period of growth for Gunnison Copper. And you laid out some of the key drivers. I'm really looking forward to the high value add news flow later in the year. By the way, I really like the copper sculpture in the background and the Empire State Building in the painting. I was born in Manhattan, so I appreciate that. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate this update.
Very much. I appreciate your time this morning. Your evening, I believe you're in Europe, so appreciate your time this evening, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.